The next video I want to talk about isn't so much an angel, but I want to talk about my first boat I ever got. Larry, when he met my mom and married her, he had, I guess, out of his divorce, he got this 17-foot. It was a 1960 17-foot deep feed Dorset, fiberglass, all wood inside. The steering thing and the dashboard and everything and compartments. And he used it in they lived in Bremerton, and they used it on the salt water, and it just ate the trailer up. I think I remember he had to put a new axle on it one time. It was sitting out at Illahee Park, and he used it. I remember Jerry talking about, when he was a teenager, his dad would let him take it out, and I'd never got invited. But anyway, so the first time I water skied was behind that boat. It was a Cuddy cabin. I'll post a picture. I'll find a picture of a 17-foot deep feed Dorset. It came with way back when they were doing paint on or whatever color on fiberglass. It was salmon pink, and Larry had named it Chinook, I think, and it was just uglier than all get out, man. So they moved down. I want to say sometime in the 80s, they'd moved down to Pleasanton. They worked for Lockheed down there on the, I don't know what it was. I think it was the missile program down there. Something. I think it was the nuclear missile, the ones that launch from land, not the submarine ones. But so they moved down there. He parked the boat. It sat there for 10 years. I mean, I'd go visit him, and there it is, just sitting out there with the cover rotting on it, and just the trailer's rotted out. It just, you could walk up to the trailer and just flake the metal off. It just was horrible. And, we got to talking, and my mom and Larry had gotten into motorhoming, and they wanted to tow a vehicle. And so I had a 1984, my second car I ever bought, my little Nissan pickup truck. Got ripped off on that one. That's a story in and of itself. And, it was probably 1990, I started talking to them, going up, saying, hey, and Larry got the idea that to put a trailer under it and trade my by then 7-8-year-old Nissan pickup truck, because they wanted to tow something. It was a manual transmission, so you can get away with easier than with automatics towing. And he said that he'd put a trailer under it, give me the boat, and I give him the truck. And so that's what I did, and I did eventually. So we get to talking about it. It's the summer of 1991. We're negotiating out. It's happening, and then Elena happened. Then Elena drowned, and that just I mean, my mom and Larry were there instantly. They just packed up their motorhome, came down, and they were there. And you can't explain losing a child. People don't, if you haven't done it, you don't understand. And they were there for probably 5 days a week. I wish they'd stayed shorter than my dad. And I'm going, I want to get this boat. Boats. I want to get this boat. And, because Larry had gone to this place, and they'd, swapped it over on a brand new trailer, Easy Rider trailer, loved it. It's sitting there with the trailer under it, and they had driven south, like, you couldn't have towed it. Oh, we would have had to have licensed it. It's like, what, $80, whatever it was back then. So, the weeks, go by. And, they're going, no, don't, not yet. Don't come get it. And I'm like, I think it was like a month. So, the beginning of September, sometime, second week of September, I went up and, had my first Ford Ranger. I loved my Ford Ranger. I wish I'd gotten the bigger engine, but it was a 1990 3.0 liter, the King Cab. I loved it. Towed my boat perfectly. So I go up there, I get it, I come back, and that winter, I was sober 7 years when Elena died, and I would have thought that I was the one that would be stoic and get through it and be the rock and be, and Misty would be the one that would be, cowering, and with, therapy psychologist or whatever. And, here it was that I was the one, and I was the one that ended up in therapy. I was the one that, I, that first winter, man, I wanted to see Elena again. If that means I could go see her in heaven, but you can't do that. So, it was bad. It was horrible that first winter. I got that boat. A friend of mine, Bruce Powell, he had this little shop called Woodworks. It had this, not a huge yard, but a big enough yard that I could, he let me take my boat in there, and I took it off the trailer, and Larry had hit rocks and stuff, and he'd put some kind of putty in there, and I'm starting to sand this thing, and the stuff is just putty coming out. I'm like, so I ended up sanding the whole boat, fiberglass. I hate sanding fiberglass. Filled all, fiberglassed everything in. Painted it. It was upside down. We painted outdoors. It was that salmon pink, and what I wanted, man, blue, dark blue is my favorite color. So I painted the bottom part blue, and then the cabin part up above is white. And it was funny because we were at, launching one time, and these other people were launching. The lady goes, "That looks like the Dick Tracy boat." And it's like, I go look at it, I go, "Yeah, it sure does." Had a 60 horsepower, three piston engine, and it got up fine. You could water ski behind it. I ended up putting 100 horsepower. Larry's going, "That's too much, motor for that boat." And I'm like, "No, it's not." I could see if the boat was lighter, it would have been, but it wasn't. So I mean, I got rid of that salmon pink, and every chip, you showed underneath. I probably spent easily 300 hours on that boat that winter, and it saved my life. It gave me something to do. It gave me something to think of other than Elena, because I mean, that's all that was on my mind was Elena. And so I did that, man. I put that boat together. I had to redo all the woodworking, the dash for the steering wheel, the little cubby holes. It was really weird how they did it. And the inside, I wish that I would have could have redone the cabin, and made it like where you could actually sleep in there and not be looking up at the underside of fiberglass. And so I got it done, and it was funny. The guy across the street, we'd probably lived there, I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, and he had a boat, out there, and I never went and talked to him. And then I get my boat, and, all of a sudden, we're talking boats. And, I'm putting this thing back together, and he's giving me ideas that, of his stuff, like wiring and, protecting it and all this stuff. And, so I get this thing back together, and we start hitting the local lakes down there in Southern California, Lake Pyramid, go up to Castaic. I hated Castaic. That was too boring. The only lake I've ever seen where, I don't know if they still do, but they had this roped off area that was maybe 5 acres that you could ride your jet skis and wave runners in. I mean, that was it, man. And Castaic is a pretty big lake. Loved going out to, took it out to Lake Mead a couple times, man. I didn't even touch the lake in my first boat when we went out there. Had a great time skiing. God, get out there, it's 107 degrees. You turn the engine off, everybody's out of the boat and in the water, and and then you cool off, and it's great. You don't need towels. Anyway. So I get this boat on the water, and even Misty's Uncle Mitch is going, "John, I didn't think you were going to do that. I didn't think you were going to pull that off. I never thought I'd see this boat in the water again." And so, that got me through that, working on that my first boat got me through that initial time of Elena. Maybe. No, it's what I needed. It's what I had to do at that time. I'm telling Misty, I'm telling my friends, man, this is what I have to do. I'm sober in AA 7 years. Bruce was sober in AA. We'd gotten sober at the same time, gone camping together and stuff, and, men's stag and all that stuff. And so anyway, one of the stories I remember is we took, what's the lake outside of Fresno? I can't think of it off the top of my head. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but we go up there with my dad, and we're, we're getting going. We have it down of, Misty and I, and how we're gonna do it. And the my dad wanted to, like, go get a cup of coffee. My dad was, he was more insane about coffee than I am. And, so he's walking down into, we're just coming up to the shore where he is, and it's muddy for where he is, and I'm just going, Dad, what you do, take your, he's had his shoes off. I'm going, his feet are just muddy, and I'm going, take your shoes off, sit on the bow, just, put your feet in the water and rinse it off, and off we go. And, that trip, we got back from a hot day on the water, and everybody's just hot. And I loved having peaches just ice in the ice chest and just ready to go, start cutting them up and just start handing them out because people love it. Watermelon's even better. But we get back, and it's hot, and my dad makes a cup of coffee, and I'm going, what are you doing? And he goes, well, you bring your temperature up a little bit, and you're not as hot. And sure enough, I've learned that. Even 110 degrees, I ain't drinking a cup of coffee. But oh, I got a story about that. My pool days, man. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to freeze water in plastic. It creates some chemical in the water. And so I had whatever it was, 2 16-ounce, frozen, and sitting in my truck doing pools. It's 110 degrees. By 10 o'clock, it's, those bottles are probably 100 degrees, that water. And it's funny because you want cold water when you're parched, and I mean, it didn't matter. I drank it down. It was just, that was funny. I mean, anyway, I'll get back to my boat. That trip with my dad, John Tyler was probably a year and a half old, and he was still in a bassinet, not a bassinet, but a carrier. And it was funny because in my boat, his carrier fit right down when you stepped into the cabin. It just fit snug, wasn't going anywhere. And we'd go play all day, and he just slept. So I mean, just Misty and I just keep an eye on him, and like we're gonna go play it. We had a ball, and I always took my captainship seriously too. I went out. That was in California, and I went out and I got. Their state license, they sent me the pamphlet. I took the test, sent it in, got my, whatever stupid little certificate from the state of California. I really did, man. I, got on the water. I didn't mess around. And so anyway, we probably used that boat for 2 years. And in the time it sat with the trailer rotting out, the transom, the back of the boat rotted out. It was, you could start pushing your fingers through it. You start tightening the motor mounts on it, and it start crushing in. And my friend Terry tried to put a new one in. It wasn't worth it. The boat was probably worth $100, and it would cost $2,500 to put truly put a new transom in it. So it was like, that's not going to happen. And then in 2005, when Misty and I bought our house, she said, I'll tell you what, you can buy a boat if you get rid of your, Dick Tracy boat. And I'm going, okay. So I was kind of stupid because I did not take like everything out of it, and I should have. I'd put all kinds of garbage in it that I was going to take to the dump, and it got buried, and I couldn't get at it. And it was like, the anchor and chain and all the ropes and whatever that was in there, rotting out. Anyway, so I took it to the dump there in Palmdale. Went to push it off the trailer. It got halfway, and I couldn't drive forward. It stayed on the trailer. It's sitting there on the ground. The 3 Mexican guys come over and they help me push it off, and I drive off, and I'm looking in my rearview mirror, and there's my boat. I knew that big yellow machine was gonna come up and just chew it up, and that was gonna be it for that. And I got tears in my eyes. I'm crying, man. And then my grandmother died, and each of us grandkids got $15,000. And so down on Sand Canyon, as you're going from Palmdale down to the valley, the San Fernando Valley, there was a boat place there. And I would stop in there periodically and just walk around and look at the boats and what was out there. And, here I had, this money from my grandma, and and a little bit more, in my pocket. I was doing really good in my pool business at the time. And there was a 19-foot Rhinell, open bow, go out there, play on the water boat. That's what I wanted at the time. That's what I wanted. That get me on the water. I think it had a V6 engine in it. And then, like, the way that it was on the lot, it was facing this 20. It was a Rhinell 205, which is, a 20.5 inches boat. Had a Chevy V8, Volvo engine. God, I never, ever had any problem with that engine. And, it's maroon, got the maroon stripe on it. And I'm looking at that. It was 17,500, and the 19-footer was like 15,500. And so I'm looking at the 19-footer going, man, that'd be perfect for, I could, that'd get me doing what I want to do, and so I go home and I talk to Misty about it, and we go back down there, and I show her the 19-footer, and she looks over at that Rhinell 205, and she goes, "That's the one." And I'm going, cool, man. Wrote a check for $17,500 plus taxes, and I had my boat, man. That I'd always wanted all my life. That when I was a kid, man, every once in a while, Dad would come up with some friend that had a boat and get out on the water, man. And all I would do is, "Can I drive? Can I drive? Please let me drive. I just want to drive. Please let me drive." And they just finally let me drive, just to shut me up. An 11-year-old kid. And just and I loved it, and I knew what to do too, man. When I was at that age, I knew I knew boats, man. I knew, Anyway, so that's how I got my Rhinell 205, and had a 30-gallon tank. We'd get to usually you gassed up like close to the lake you're going to, or where you're going to. I always went to lakes, and it was 30 gallons in the truck and 30 gallons in the boat, and get that that 30 gallons would give me 8 hours. We'd get out on the water and play for 8 hours, and had a great time. It was funny because I love to ski on one ski. I love being like far enough behind the boat where you can hear that water coming back together behind you, and you're just out there. If you're on glass, there's nothing like it. I've never truly skied on powder, snow, but you get on glass in one ski. So that was my thing. Oh, I got to tell the story. The first time I got the boat, we took it out Easter of 2006. It was in April. It was cold on the water. I mean, there were other people who were going out, but I knew that it was going to be tough to be in the water. So a friend of ours he managed like 5 Big 5 stores. I mean, he was the district manager. And I called him up and I said, "I'm not looking for a deal. I'll pay full price, but I'm looking for a knee board," because they weren't out on the shelves, yet. And he called around and he said, "Go to this store. They have one for you. I don't know, $60, $100, whatever it was. No big deal." And so I got a knee board, and so we go out that day, and I go first. And, I show them how to do it, knee board and stuff. You got a strap you got to put on your legs, and then you can go jump the wake and stuff and just, have a ball. And so I do it. Misty does it. Alicia does it. I was glad our whole family was there that first boat trip. Alicia does it. It was kind of sad because I had a kind of a half wetsuit, and they didn't. Anyway, John Tyler does it. And then Jason, does it. We all get to Madison, and it's funny because she's, got her life vest on, and it's got a swim deck on the back of the boat, and you got the board, you got the rope, you got the water. It's cold, and and it was interesting because she started to go in the water, and I could see the fear in her eyes. I could see the absolute terror, and I'm going, okay, cool, Madison, if you don't want to go, not a problem. And it was funny because she flipped a switch in her mind, and I saw it in her eyes. I was amazed. I mean, and she goes, "I'm going to do it." and she got in the water, and it really is kind of scary, man, when the boat's pulling away from you and you're all alone in the water, and it takes about, I don't know, 30 seconds, 45 seconds to get the rope tight enough, where you start pulling you through the water, and then you go hit it, and she did it, man. She got up. I was so proud of her, just so amazed that she, my brothers did it. I'm going to do it. If Alicia can do it, I'm going to do it. I was like, and she did it. And it, we went out and had fun that day. It was great. God, man, so many more sunny days. That was a cold day, man, on Lake Pyramid. My boats, a boat came in today. I'll post it. I took a video. This is the boat I want, if I ever hit the lottery. And I bought a 3 quick picks for the Mega tonight. So anyway, that's kind of my boat story. You'll probably hear more about my boats as we go along. And sitting here at John Wayne Marina, and you all have a blessed day.